would you call it, I don't know, we have something in our video magazine that we call video essays, which are basically an essay you would have about a film, like if you were an academic, but instead of writing about a scene, you're able to show that scene.
Sure.
Is that what you would describe it as?
Certainly there's a big there's a big video essay influence, and in the making of it, I had seen and considered things like the 90-minute Star Wars reviews, or that deconstruction of the that car chase scene in The Dark Knight, or those amazing ones that Kirby Ferguson does. Everything's a remix.
Yeah.
Probably what makes 237 different from a lot of those is it's not my voiceover driving it. It's a roundup of 5 other experts' points of view that we're struggling to sort of illuminate.
And you're using the voiceover, and I mean, I can understand that you don't want to have to create a bias by showing maybe the person that's delivering it. You want to kind of purely represent what they think about the film, but the voiceover is still also kind of a loaded technique in documentary. Otherwise, it's almost has that aura of being a Richard Attenborough kind of factual.
That voiceover brings a certain credence and authority. That's true.
Yeah, well, and I'm always interested in the way that, in documentaries, sometimes a person is brought forth as the expert, and there's never a contrary opinion, and depending on how much time they spend, building up this person's credentials, the audience is more or less inclined to take what he says as gospel. So I think going into it, we weren't exactly sure, what the ramifications were going to be of using these competing voices, but presenting alternate points of view in that format seemed like an interesting experiment to go through and to find out for ourselves as it played whether different voices would reinforce each other or all be mutually exclusive.
One thing we talked about early on was nature documentaries, where you see the poor hungry gazelle the poor hungry lion and needs to feed its cubs, and it tracks down the gazelle, and then you see the other version, which is about the lovely gazelle that's trying to survive, and this horrible lion is haunting it. And you could use the same footage; it would just be a different voiceover or a different point of view. That was one of the things we talked about.
I teach a film editing class, and one of the first exercises we run through is a bunch of nature footage. And having previously spent a fair amount of time discussing screen direction, I would have the students make these little dramas where like a mouse comes out of a hole and he looks screen right, and we have a shot of a hawk looking screen left, and then the mouse continues, turns around and goes back into the hole. Or actually that mouse shot is one continuous shot. Comes out of the hole, looks screen right, runs back into the hole. But if you intercut it with the shot of the hawk, clearly it seems like the hawk is looking at the mouse and the mouse is reacting to the hawk. And it's always kind of mind-blowing because people assume that you're watching a documentary and everything you see is exactly the way it happened, and well, very clearly these are two very real things. The mouse did come out of the hole and go back in, and the hawk did turn this way, but the only reason that we're making this relationship is based on screen direction and these opposing looks, which is something that most people don't even question. But I think that was an exercise among many that we did in the class that made me kind of question some of the conventions of the documentary form, and made me think it would be fun to kind of manipulate some of those. Also there's that long section in the film where John Fell Ryan is talking about his experiences working in a film archive, and how he started to doubt the relationship between what he was seeing and what he was saying, and what he was seeing in the footage and what he was hearing in the voiceover. He suggested that Kubrick, having seen those sorts of newsreels growing up, might have been doing something very similar in The Shining, and of course that gave me permission in the edit to stretch the relationship between what we're seeing and what we're hearing, in kind of interesting ways.